it's Tracy with Bewitched Crafts. Welcome back to the 12 Cards of Christmas. Today we're starting again with our White Daisy card base. It measures 5.5 by 4 1/4. We're going to cover the front of the card base with some Sapphire cardstock. I'm just going to take my tape runner and put a little bit of adhesive on that. I'll use my grid lines here to line it up. I'm going to cover the card front completely. Now I've cut a coordinating piece of pattern paper from the Serenity cardstock pack. You can see some detail in here. It's got some white and some gold flecks. I'm going to do the same thing here. A little bit of adhesive from my Tombow tape runner. Use my grid lines to line it up. So this piece is 1/4 inch smaller. And now we're going to make an ornament for the front, and we're going to use our thin cut ornament die set. Now that die comes in a combination of pieces. I've got it lined up here. The top piece is also a separate die. So the first thing that I've done is I have cut with just this outline die a piece of silver foil paper. Now to make the rest of the die, I've put the outline die over the 3 embossing sections. I'm going to take it apart so you can see what I've done. I've used some repositionable purple tape for this because you will need to secure these pieces together before you run it through your die cutting machine. Okay, so it's a little easier to see what I've done now. This piece I started with the silver foil. That's going to be the background. Then I've taken these 3 embossing pieces and laid them inside the die, and then put the die over a piece of sapphire cardstock. Now it hasn't cut all the way through on a lot of these pieces, so I'm just going to move these out of the way. Use a Cricut tool here and clean this up. If you have difficulty cutting this, I recommend that you shim your die. I used a small metal plate to do that for this die. You could also use the rubber embossing plate or some extra cardstock or even some craft foam to get enough pressure to get clean cuts. Just make sure you're using that repositionable tape so that things don't shift as they go through the machine. This die is a little bit of work, but I promise you it is worth it. If you don't have one of these Cricut tools, you can use your paper piercer and it works just as well. I'm not really using the sharp point of this. I'm just pushing through where it's already pre-cut. I'm just kind of being really careful not to tear anything if it sticks like this one. Just kind of push it to the back and then peel it away. So I debated on this card whether or not I would add a sentiment because I will have room on the front, and I could work with either silver embossing powder or gold based on the 2 colors that I have between the ornament die and the pattern paper. In this case I felt like it was more balanced without a sentiment, and I'll do my sentiment on the inside of the card, but you have lots of options here. So if you have a sentiment that you particularly wanted to use, I would recommend embossing it in a metallic. I just have a few more pieces to conquer here. You can imagine what this would have been like if I had not had the shim. Just get a few more off. Okay. So now what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to adhere this to the silver metallic paper. And with all of these openings on it and with the metallic paper being hard to adhere to, I'm not going to use my tape runner. I'm going to use liquid glue. So I'm going to apply liquid glue to the back of the sapphire paper, and then I'm going to stick it down here. And then I do have that topper that's going to go on the top that's also metallic, so I'm going to use my liquid glue for that as well. And when I'm done, it looks like this. So I've already let this glue dry so we can go ahead and complete the card. But again, all I did was I took the metallic piece, the foil, and covered it with the sapphire using liquid glue, and then added this piece here. I do want to give you a quick tip about die cutting with the silver metallic paper, the foil papers. If you have an older cutting mat that has lines in it, scars in it, lots of different marks that are totally normal for regular use with a die cutting machine, make sure you cut your foil down to the size you're going to work with. Anything that rolls through the machine against those plates will pick up Mars. So it gets scratched and scuffed, and it would be pretty much unusable unless it was basically hidden behind something else. So just make sure that when you cut it out, you go ahead and cut it down instead of rolling through a big sheet of your metallic paper. So for the final step for my card, I'm just going to adhere this to the card front. As always, I've got my trusty tape runner. I'm going to pop it right there in the center. You could also use 3D foam tape if you wanted to give it a little bit more lift. And we're all set. That's today's card project. I hope you really like it and you'll give it a shot. And come back tomorrow to see what's next on the 12 Cards of Christmas.